Good morning, Primary 6. How are we all doing today? It's another fantastic day outside. Great to see all of you here. I'm just having a look through the comments. Sorry, I'm a little late starting, but I'm seeing we've got Megan, we've got Audrey, Sky, we've got Michael, Callie, Sam. Great to see all of you guys. Many more of you tuning in as well. Charles, good to see you today. We've got Aisha, we've got Freya, Gitanjali, Zach. Great to see all of you guys. I know I say this all the time and I end up rabbiting on for 40 minutes almost every time, but today should be a bit of a short one. I've only got one thing that I really want to talk about. So this is going to be sort of just one lesson about something that I'm really passionate about, that I really care about here. And I'm basically just going to tell you a little story, and it's a story of a little spacecraft that was launched back in the 1970s, called Voyager 1, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So today is going to be the story of a particular spacecraft, and this is the way we are rounding off our whole space topic. So we are, as of today, finishing up our space topic, and so your challenge then is, can you figure out where we are today? Some of you in my class, you might have already heard a little bit about this. I've talked to you a little bit about this photo earlier in the year, but you might not quite remember all the details, and that's what we're going to be fleshing out a wee bit today. So by the end of this lesson, you'll all be able to tell me exactly where we are. Well, not exactly, but you'll be able to tell us roughly where we are, yeah, you'll understand a little bit more about why Voyager 1, this little spacecraft, was so important in history. Anyway, guys, Sky, I'm noticing that you're saying that you can't hear me or see me. I don't know why that is, but I am on, and I'm trusting that everyone else can see me. So hi to everyone, and sorry, Sky, you're not managing to tune in right now. Hopefully, you'll be with us soon. Anyway, let me flip screens here, and we will get started straight away with the story of Voyager. Here we go. So, today I'm mainly going to be talking about Voyager 1. However, there were 2 Voyager spacecraft in total that launched, I think within a year of each other, certainly within a couple of years of each other. But today we're talking mainly about Voyager 1. So Voyager 1 was a little research spacecraft, and it was launched in 1977. So long before you guys were born, to be honest, before even I was born. But way back in 1977, Voyager was launched. And its mission was to gather information about some of the outer planets in our solar system, particularly Jupiter and Saturn. So Voyager 1 visited Jupiter and Saturn. Voyager 2 also went by, I think, Uranus and Neptune as well. Or was it Titan, one of the moons of Neptune? I can't quite remember where Voyager 2 went. But Voyager 1 did a flyby of Jupiter and a flyby of Saturn. After its flyby of Saturn, so this was it launched in 1977, it flew by Saturn in 1980, so it took 3 years to get to Saturn. But after its flyby of Saturn, it started its long journey towards the edge of our solar system. 10 years later, 10 years after leaving Saturn, so in 1990, I can tell you I was born by this point, in 1990, and now at an amazing distance of 6 billion kilometers from planet Earth, Voyager 1 had one last task to do, one last part of its mission, and that was to turn its cameras back towards us. And it took one last photo of our solar system. It actually took photos of all of the different, or as many of the planets as it could see, and among those photos was this very simple photo. Oh, sorry, I've skipped a couple of slides here. This very simple photo. This became known as the pale blue dot. And right here, this tiny pale blue speck, that is us, our home. And I think there's something really quite wonderful about that. There's a real majesty to it. The fact that we are just everything that we have ever known has existed on that tiny pale blue dot. I think there's something almost magical about that. Anyway, some years later, so this photo was taken in 1990, so somewhere in that photo, I'm probably sitting with my parents. Your parents, as much younger people before you were born, they're in that photo somewhere. There are billions of people who were in that photo without even realizing it, which I think is quite wonderful. So unfortunately, you guys aren't in it, but your parents are, and your grandparents will be, and I think there's something lovely about that. After capturing that photo, Voyager continued its journey away into deep space. However, this man here, which I will just pull up just now, this is Carl Sagan, a man who I really, really respect. I consider him one of my heroes. In fact, I love this man's work so much that I named one of my guinea pigs after him. So Carl Sagan, he was so profoundly moved by this photo, the pale blue dot, that he wrote an entire book, not just about the photo, but about the journey to get the photo, about other interesting things in our solar system, all sorts of wonderful stuff in this book. He wrote it back in 1994, and he died just 2 years after writing it. But the book itself, I have found truly wonderful, and it's one of the things that made me fall utterly in love with cosmology. But in this book, he writes what I think are quite profound words, and I'm going to be, I'm man enough to admit the way he writes genuinely almost moves me to tears when I read it. I find it profoundly emotional, the way he writes about the pale blue dot. So I'm going to read out a short extract of the section he wrote about this photograph. So, he'd already talked a little bit about the dot and the process of getting the photo. And then he says, "Consider again that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbour life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another, and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. Now, that was a somewhat long quote, and okay, there's some fairly adult words in it, but hopefully you got a sense of the message behind it, the message that Carl Sagan was trying to paint. He makes us realize that everything that we have ever experienced has existed in this tiny little speck that, okay, although it seems very big and very grand to us, in the grand scheme of things, compared to the rest of the universe, we really are very tiny. And there's nowhere else we can go if we start to ruin it. So all this stuff about climate change, all this stuff about protecting the environment, it makes you realize just how important it is. And it makes you realize how unimportant the petty squabbles that we have in our day-to-day life are. We really are very, very small. And because of that, or in a way that, I don't know, it almost makes you feel kind of big as well, which is in some ways a bit of an oxymoron, a bit of a contradiction. But I find that because I realize just how small we are, it kind of lifts us up and makes us feel that little bit more important, and that, but also a little bit more humble as well. There's a lot of contrasting emotions that I think are weaved in through this piece of writing, and that's why I find it so profoundly beautiful. Anyway, I probably find that a little bit more emotive than you guys do, but I hope that I've shared a little bit of that with you, and maybe you can see why I find it as moving. Anyway, back to Voyager. So Carl Sagan wrote that about this photo taken by Voyager, and this was one of the last photos that Voyager ever took. From there, she headed out into deep space, and she is still going. She's now, as of about March at least, according to one source, she's at a distance of around 22.2 billion miles away from home. So this photo here was taken at a distance of 6 billion kilometers. 6 billion kilometers. I keep mixing up miles and kilometers. 6 billion kilometers, and she's now at a distance of 22 billion kilometers, which is an astonishingly huge distance. Just mind-bogglingly far. So she is further away than any other spacecraft that we have ever sent out there. She's heading away from our sun at the fastest speed of any craft that we've ever created. So she is the fastest moving craft, that we've ever created. But her story isn't really over. So yeah, okay, Voyager's still collecting a bit of data, and occasionally it's being beamed back to Earth. So there's still stuff going on with her, or I can't remember if that just ended a couple of years ago, but certainly up until recently, she was still sending stuff back to Earth. However, no matter what, her mission won't really be over for quite a long time, potentially, because the one other thing that she has strapped to her side is this. This is a golden record. And they put it on there in the very unlikely event that Voyager 1 is ever picked up by another intelligent species. So we know roughly where she's likely to be heading, but there is the slightest possibility that one day some intelligent life will come across her. Because, I mean, unless she bumps into something, unless there's something that destroys her, then she will keep traveling through space for millions of years. Millions of years. The only thing that will destroy her is an impact of some sort. And the chances of that happening are very, very slim, because space is very, very empty. And so they put this on just in case something is one day able to pick her up. And it has all sorts of information on it. So it has information about where we are in relation to various other various other stars called pulsars, and that tells them where they can look to find our star. There's various other things about hydrogen atoms, and they're using that as a measure so that basically there's enough information there that any spacefaring creature, anything that was clever enough, intelligent enough to be traveling through space, they would be able to decode this, as it were, and figure out exactly where we are. And then it also tells you how to play the record, what speed to play it at. So inside this is just the dust jacket, if you will, the cover for it. Inside it is an actual record, and it has all sorts of things on it, including pictures, including various different sounds from Earth. It's got the sound of people laughing. It's got the sound of people saying hello in many different languages. And at one point in his book, Carl Sagan says that he felt it would be impolite not to at least say hello to whoever was listening. So it's got lots of people saying hello in many different languages. It's got birds tweeting, various nature sounds. And I think it's just quite nice that there is this memento of us that probably long after we're dead will still be out there in space carrying our message, saying this is the way we were. And you know, we were a hopeful species, and we tried hard, and we wanted to understand things. I just think there's something quite wonderful about that. So Voyager herself, although she carries a message in the form of this disc, she also is a message herself, in the sense that she is purely a research vessel. She has no means of causing harm to anyone. She kind of speaks of our hopes, what we want as a species, what we're about as a species, discovery and education. That's what she's really about, and that's what I think is quite lovely about it. Anyway, that's Voyager. Now, you guys might be feeling in some ways, well, you know, the pale blue dot, yeah, that's lovely, but you're not in it. I mean, you know, you guys are kids. There's no, you're not in that picture, and sure, your parents are, but you might feel a little bit cheated in a way there. Well, I've got something for you to make up for that, because just a few years ago, in 2013, so you guys were born at this point, there was a second spacecraft called Cassini, and it flew out to Saturn. So you can see Saturn here. This is the underside of Saturn and its rings. And just here, in 2013, it took a new version of the pale blue dot at a slightly closer distance, not quite as far away as the original, but somewhere in that photo, you are there. And in fact, I can guarantee that you, at least if you were in your house, no matter what, you were... sorry, I'm not explaining myself very well there. Obviously, if you were in your house, you would have been covered by your house, and Cassini wouldn't have been able to see you directly. But if you were outside, as many of you may have been, then you are somewhere in that photo visible to Cassini, if you like. And I can tell you that me, my wife, before we were married, and my parents are all standing in that photo on the side of Christorfen Hill at the exact moment that it was taken, waving at Cassini, where she would have been around Saturn. So I think that's a bit of fun there, and you guys are somewhere in it too. Whether you're in your house, whether you're outside, you are in that photo. That is a photo that includes all of you, which I think is quite lovely. So yeah, you've not been left out here. You're a part of it too. So there's two pale blue dot photos. You've got the original here, taken at a distance of 6 billion kilometers back in 1990. And then you've got the new one, taken a little bit closer, back in 2013. So you guys were just kids, but you're in it somewhere. So your task for today, and this is where I'm going to leave you just shortly, but your task for today is to think, if you were one of the scientists, if you were Carl Sagan and you were deciding what to put on the Sounds of Earth record, what would you put on it? What choices would you make? You can choose not just sounds, it could also, so there were also many images included in it. So have a think, what sounds would you include? What pictures would you include? What songs would you include? All sorts of things. And what information just would you put on it? Are there any facts about Earth that you think an alien species should know about us? And as you do that, I kind of want you to think a little bit about what we've learned over our space topic, and just kind of reflect on our learning a little bit. I always find space quite a moving, quite a deep topic, and hopefully you guys have got some sense of that over the last few weeks while we've been studying it. And if nothing else, hopefully it's made you realize that whenever we have a problem, whenever there's difficulty that we encounter in our life, I think having a knowledge of the grandness of space, it kind of puts things in perspective a little bit. It makes you realize that the hard times aren't that hard. But at the same time, it also makes you realize that you are quite unique and you are quite special. And although people often think of science as just being about hard facts and figures and research, I think there's kind of a poetry that underlies it all as well. And that's something that I want you to contemplate, to think about. Anyway, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you there. This has been a fairly short live stream. We're only 21 minutes in. At 11 o'clock, I'm going to have my meetup with... well, it's just an optional meetup, so a single optional meetup with anyone from my class that has any questions to go over. So it's not separated into reading groups. It's just anyone that wants to come along can do. Okay? Anyway, guys, that's your work for today. Signing off just now. Take care. Enjoy the sunshine. See you soon.